Welcome to the Aging Boomers. I'm your host, Frank Sampson. And of course, on this show, we discuss so many of the items facing, issues facing boomers, their parents, and of course, an aging population today. And we got a great guest today. I'm very excited about her joining us. Before I introduce Tami, I'd like to let everybody know that today's show is sponsored by Senior Care Authority, a professional senior placement and elder care management organization that has a national network of advisors to help in determining the right path for seniors, whether it's assisted living or receiving proper care at home, residential or memory care. Get the necessary advice from a senior care advisor in your area by calling Senior Care Authority at 888-809-1231, or you can go to their website at www.seniorcareauthority.com. And I also, again, want to thank everybody for all their support. So many of you have gone to our Aging Boomers site or download the free app on your iPhone or Android phone. So many also have gone to iTunes, iHeartRadio. We're on Lumion now. You got to check that site out. It's pretty cool. And so anyway, I don't want to take up any more time, and I want to introduce our guest today. So her name is Tami Anastasia. Tami is a health and wellness counselor, owner of TAM's Wellness Studio, an Alzheimer's caregiver support group facilitator, certified senior advisor. Hey, we're fellow certified senior advisors. Exercise specialist for people of all ages, sizes, and fitness levels, motivational health and wellness related topics, and author of the book Toward a Magnificent Self, The Exercise for Everybody. Most recently, Tami was the host of a 13-week health and wellness internet radio talk show, so she's got this down pat. She specializes in helping people break through the barriers that prevent them from achieving their goals. Tami, thank you so much for joining us on the Aging Boomers.
Thank you for having me, Frank.
Yeah, I know we were having a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're going to try to work our way through it. So I appreciate your patience with it. And I wanted to ask you. I think what you're doing is great. Tell us how you got to where you are. I mean, you have a very interesting background. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, basically, I was born and raised in the fitness industry. My father started the very first family-owned health club in 1967, and we went on to own 5 health clubs. Ah. But as a result of all my experience working and teaching exercise classes and training people one-on-one, I realized there's more than meets the eye when it comes to taking care of ourselves and making exercise a habit, and a lot of people opened up to me and shared a lot of personal things. So I went back to school with the intent of starting my own business and got a master's degree in counseling psychology so I could combine my counseling skills with the personal training skills that I had developed by working through the health club. And so since 1991 now, I've been specializing in working with people of all ages, different sizes, shapes. I specialize in working with people with medical conditions such as diabetes, fibromyalgia, chronic pain issues. I specialize in working with people with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, plus size, and basically those people who have issues with motivation, self-esteem. So my business has evolved over the years in many, many different directions, and I just absolutely love doing what I can to help people feel better about themselves, both physically and mentally.
I think it's great. Great what you do. We appreciate it, everything you do, and I want to. So I want to start out by asking you, and this is. I've gone through this too. So many of us, know the importance of exercise. I've never had anybody say, "Oh, exercise. You don't need to exercise." Nobody says that. Everybody knows it's important. And so what do we do when it just becomes too difficult, or not difficult, I mean just maybe psychologically you're supposed to do it, you just don't. So why do you think that happens?
Okay, so that's a great question, because if you look at it, today most people know the importance of exercise, and our culture has made exercise a much more complicated issue than it needs to be. And our culture spends much more time focusing on changing the behavior, and not enough attention is given to the thoughts that we have associated with the behavior. So one of the main reasons why people have difficulty changing a behavior or a habit is because of a psychological barrier called resistance. Now, that being said, I want to start off by saying this, that there is not something inherently wrong with people who have difficulty making lifestyle changes. In other words, the problem is not that people are lazy or that they lack self-discipline or determination or the will. The problem is in the rules they're trying to follow. So our cultural standards and recommendations that people are trying to meet are often unrealistic for the individual. And I say that they're unrealistic because the cultural standards and recommendations do not take into consideration the individual needs of a person, their limitations, their abilities, and their interests. So what happens is a lot of people bite off more than they can chew, and it's just a matter of time before they physically or mentally burn out. So the key to making exercise a habit or changing any lifestyle habit is figuring out what's going to work for you. And that's going to vary from person to person. So I think we need to give people an understanding. You need to know what resistance is, why resistance occurs, and what triggers resistance. So resistance gets often mislabeled as being lazy, as being difficult, or lacking self-discipline, determination, or will. And it's none of the above. Resistance is a subconscious defense mechanism that gets triggered to protect us from experience pain, anger, frustration, disappointment, judgment, and or criticism. So it's a subconscious defense mechanism that gets triggered, which means most of the time people aren't even aware that it's been triggered. And what triggers resistance is a few different things. When we try to force ourselves to do things we're not ready to do or we don't want to do. Resistance can also get triggered when we're tired of being told what we should do and how we should do it, which our culture is famous for doing. And we're also going to meet resistance when we feel we're being judged or criticized for the way we do something. And then often the most common thing that I see occur is when people place demands or expectations on themselves that exceed their limitations, that exceeds what they can do on a long-term basis. We can stick to anything on a short-term basis, but long-term is a different story.
So, we hear this all too often. I know I have had it, unfortunately, with friends. They go through a health scare, whether it's heart or whatever the case may be, and in a sense they wait too long. They get that scare, and all of a sudden they're an exercise fiend, which is wonderful, but people wait too long, would you say? Is that pretty common?
I don't think that's a fair statement to say that people wait too long. I think the confusion is that it's trying to figure out what's going to work with me that I can stick to on a regular basis. And, I don't care what age a person is. I've had clients as young as 10 and as old as 98. And it's really figuring out how can I make exercise a part of my life in a way that I can look forward to doing it. let me say something right now.
Mm-hmm.
Our thoughts basically control what we do. And so if there's any negative psychological association with our goals or expectations, then it's going to decrease the chances of doing it or maintaining it on a regular basis. So let me give you an example.
Okay.
How many people do you know, and yourself included, like to do things that are time-consuming, painful, or boring?
Not many.
These are the three most popular ways that people describe exercise. And so it's no wonder why people have difficulty motivating themselves to exercise if we associate it with being time-consuming or we associate it with being painful or boring. The key is to put exercise into a frame of mind or any behavior change you want to make so that it's associated with pleasure. It's not associated with pain in any way. So I don't think we can say that people are waiting too long and then they have a health scare. I think that people truly have a desire, but they don't know how to incorporate a behavior into their life in a way that works for them, in a way that's manageable, in a way that's doable, because we're stuck in trying to meet cultural standards and recommendations that are unrealistic. And so what I do is try to help people set goals that are realistic. Because the bottom line is consistency has to do with our goals and expectations. Mm-hmm. The more unrealistic our goals and expectations are, the more inconsistent people are going to be. The more realistic our goals and expectations are, the more consistent people are going to be. Let me give you another example. How many people, and including yourself, how many of you look forward to doing things that you enjoy doing, and how many of you look forward to doing things you don't want to do?
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, you'd rather do things that you enjoy doing, of course.
Exactly. So once a behavior gets associated in any way that is physically or psychologically demanding, resistance is going to occur. And there's 4 ways you're going to know. There's 4 warning signs that are going to let you know when resistance is occurring. And what happens is we blame and we shame ourselves. We feel guilty. We're critical of ourselves. And I want people, I'm going to give you what the 4 warning signs are, and I want people to realize if they're meeting the wall of resistance, it's for a very good reason. It is not because they're lazy. It's not because they lack determination or the will. They're hitting the wall of resistance because they're asking more from themselves than what is realistic at the time. So the 4 warning signs are going to be this. One is people are going to have difficulty motivating themselves and or maintaining the motivation. In other words, they're probably biting off too much more than they can chew, and they're having difficulty maintaining it. Or they're having difficulty motivating themselves because the demand or the expectation or the behavior change or the goal is exceeding what they can realistically do. The second warning sign is that people are going to avoid or put off the task or goal and have excuses for not doing it. For example, when people procrastinate, there is a very good reason why we're procrastinating. And so we have to understand if I'm procrastinating, then I'm avoiding what's realistic, and I need to break the task down. So it's not physically or psychologically demanding. The third warning sign that's going to let people know that resistance is occurring is they're going to lose interest in the idea of pursuing the goal or changing the behavior completely. They're frustrated, they've given up, and they're done. They've lost interest in the idea. And then the fourth most telling sign when resistance is occurring is you're going to do the exact opposite of what you say you're going to do.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, that makes sense. Do you find that, if people at least start exercising and setting some goals, and they're not seeing the results they would like. Maybe it's they're exercising because, aside from getting in shape, they like to lose a few pounds, and they're not seeing the result, and they get frustrated and stop. Is that pretty common? And how do you deal with that? If that's a type of resistance, how do you deal with that?
That's an excellent point. As a matter of fact, if you ever want to get discouraged about exercise or making any lifestyle changes, the worst thing you can do is to step on a scale. We have been conditioned to think that weight loss is the only benefit of exercise, of changing our eating habits, when in reality, weight loss does not determine the value of what we do. Weight loss can be a benefit down the road, but there are so many benefits that occur before we lose a single pound. So what I have to teach people is how to measure the benefits in a way that they see a payoff. And the payoff happens immediately. It's just that we are not conditioned to see or measure the benefits in a way that we can see that it's paying off. So in my book and my work with people, I have what I call the personal value and benefits of exercise. And to give you an idea of the power of this, I had, just for myself, I had 5 clients for 30 days not weigh themselves. But I wanted them to keep track that after every time they exercise, I wanted them to write down something that made them feel good, that they could see a payoff. They had more energy, they were in a better mood, they felt stronger, they didn't have to take a nap in the middle of the day. One client said, I didn't bite my boss's head off at work, I went for a walk around the block instead. I mean, they came up with a list of all these valuable, beneficial ways they saw how exercise was paying off. So they kept very motivated, and then I had them step on the scale. What do you think happened when they realized they only lost a pound in 30 days? Some of them lost no weight, and some of them gained weight. What do you think happened when all the stuff that they wrote down and how they felt about all these positive benefits, what do you think happened the minute they stepped on the scale and they did not see, quote-unquote, weight loss?
Oh, yeah, they get discouraged.
There you go.
Yeah, right.
There you go. So there's a cause and effect relationship. And so if I'm going to make behavior changes, if I'm going to change my exercise and I'm going to try walking a mile a day, or I'm going to walk once every other day, whatever that is, you have to make a conscious effort to see how it's paying off. Because there's a benefit every single time you move. But if we are only dependent on measuring the benefit in terms of weight loss, we're going to get discouraged. I can take a person who's a plus size, and I can have that person, I can improve their quality of life, and their quality of life can improve whether they gain or lose a single pound. I can have them increase and improve their quality of life whether or not they lose a single pound. That's really what the work is about. It's about how to improve people's quality of life and measuring the benefits in a way that are positive instead of measuring them in a way that are discouraging.
Yeah. You mentioned your book. It's called Toward a Magnificent Self, the exercise book for everybody. Everybody. Is it everybody or everybody?
It's everybody.
Everybody.
Meaning everybody.
Okay. Gotcha. So tell us a little bit about the book and some of the benefits people can get by getting the book and how they go about doing that.
Okay, so I'm a motivational speaker, and I had several requests in the past to put into writing my observations and insights pertaining to exercise from a psychological perspective. And so what makes my book different than any other exercise book out there is I really address the psychological aspects of making exercise a habit. Now, truth be told, a lot of what gets in our way with exercise tends to carry over into other areas of our lives. So what I've learned is a lot of the psychological roadblocks or the barriers that get in our way with exercise will also carry over into other aspects of our lives. So if we can break the habit and break these barriers, break through these barriers, they also will help make a difference in other areas of our lives. So I've identified what I call 6 faulty exercise mindset traps people fall into. So I describe in the book what they are. I have a lot of self-assessment questionnaires. I provide a lot of personal and professional anecdotes, and I provide a lot of different tips and strategies on how to break through the barriers. That it's a very concrete, something substantial that they can put into practice at any time of the day, any time of the month, any time of the year, whenever they're ready. And it really normalizes the frustration because what the book does, it doesn't shame people, it doesn't blame people. As a matter of fact, I replace what I call the no pain, no gain philosophy with the no pain, no blame approach. Mm-hmm. In other words, I meet people where they're at. I'm not going to tell you what you should be doing, how you should be doing it. That's what our culture's doing that's tripping people up. I'm giving you permission and the skills to figure out how to incorporate lifestyle habits, exercise especially, in a way that works for you. Because the bottom line is, when we do what works for us, we're most likely going to stick to it. But if we try doing more than what is realistic for us, the chances are it's going to be short-term and we're going to constantly be inconsistent with our habits. Mm-hmm. So I truly believe most people know what is best for them. We've just gotten sidetracked because we're trying to live up to cultural standards and recommendations that are unrealistic. I don't know about you, but nobody's ever called me to ask me how I like to exercise, what is the best time of day for me to exercise, how long, how hard I want to exercise. Has anybody called you?
Not at all.
Okay? And what you can do and what I can do are going to be very different.
Right.
So I just want to help people to find what it is that's going to be best for them, not based on my expectations, but what they're capable of doing. And that's going to vary from person to person. Yeah. And there's so much confusion, there's so much frustration right now because we keep getting these mixed messages, and we got to get back to basics.
Yeah.
And the basics is, I want you to move your body in a way that makes you feel good. I want you to choose activities or exercises in a way that you enjoy. Choose what you enjoy. When I start working with any people, I always go through, a lot of people go through a medical history. Well, I go through an exercise history. Tell me about your relationship with exercise, the pluses and the minuses, what worked, what hasn't worked, what you like, what you don't like. And we work off of that. And so I can have a client that's 350 pounds, and if I can get her to walk up and down her hallway, and it's for a minute or two, we're doing great because I'm taking her from nothing. And what you don't know is if we do it just right, that 2 or 3 minutes eventually will become 5 minutes as she gets in more condition. And then that 5 minutes may become 10 minutes, and 10 minutes may become 15. And it might take us 3 months, 6 months, or 10 months, or a year to get there. But if she pushes or he pushes himself just right each time, how is it that's working against you? What's working against us is trying to do too much too soon and burning out physically and mentally. So I have this saying, less is better on a consistent basis than trying to do more and then ultimately doing nothing at all.
That's a very good point. So, you talked about the book. How would people, if they wanted to get the book, how do they go about doing that? If they want to get a hold of you and, maybe make contact with you, how would they go about doing that as well?
The book is on my website, and the website is tamswellness.com, and it's T as in Tammy, A as in Apple, M as in Mary, S as in Sam. It's tamswellness.com. You can order the book through my website, or you can also find it on Amazon. And as far as contacting me, you can contact me 3 different ways. You can contact me through my website. Again, that's tamswellness.com, which is T as in Tammy, A as in Apple, M as in Mary, S as in Sam, wellness.com. Or you can contact me through my email, which is tamswellness@gmail.com. Or you can also contact me by phone, and the phone number is on my website.
Great. Well, that was very informative. I'm going to leave you with one last question, because we just have about a minute left or so. Just any words of wisdom for our listeners, especially someone who knows they need to start exercising. What are the next steps? What do they do?
So the first thing I would really like people to start thinking about is, instead of wasting your time and energy being judgmental and critical of yourself, I want you to look at, if you're not doing something, I want you to be very compassionate and understand that the resistance is occurring for a reason. So what I want you to do is I want you to modify that goal, and I want you to simplify it. I want you to see if you can do something very, very small and be able to meet it every 4 weeks. Because if you can meet that goal every 4 weeks, then you're most likely doing something that's realistic. So instead of being critical and judgmental, be compassionate and understanding. And I always, when I do a speaking engagement, I always like to end with a quote. And one of my favorite quotes is by Albert Einstein. And it's, "The significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them." So instead of beating your head against the wall and keep trying to force yourself to do the same thing over and over again, simplify it. Reduce your expectations. Change them. Modify them, and set yourself up to be successful instead of setting yourself up to fail. Be very gentle and patient with yourself, because every single person out there has the ability, but you just got to find what works for you. Not what our culture says, not what your husband says or your best friend. It's figuring out what works for you and stick to that, because then that is the right thing for you to do.
Tami Anastasia, thank you so much for joining us on the Aging Boomers, and thanks for working through us with a few technical problems we had, but I think we got the message out. So thank you so much. You can hopefully you'll check out her book at tamswellness.com. And thank you all so much for tuning in, and please get the word out. Let your friends, family know about the show. A lot of good information, and we do this each Monday and Friday. So again, thank you all. Be safe out there, and we'll talk to you all soon.